How is again? This is a video that's probably 2 years overdue. I started this thing back a while ago, a good while ago, a couple of years ago, called Ales and Answers. And the thing was that people could put questions down below a video about a certain topic that I talk about, or a thing I'm interested in, or you might be interested in, regarding esoteric, megaliths, magic, really lots of the kind of topics I talk about, and I would answer them for you. And I did one, and I got a good reception, and I didn't do it again. Mainly the reason for this was that I don't really drink anymore, and the idea was that I would have a beer, like a beer of the week. It was a nice idea, but I kind of stopped regularly drinking. I don't really touch the stuff that much anymore, like except when I'm on holiday or on the road or something like that. But I'm making an exception today because of the China virus. And yes, do you know that and this is true, that the patron saint of pandemics is known as Saint Corona? Look that up. It's quite interesting. Now, so I'm going to revive. This is a long overdue, belated Ales and Answers 2. It's also a cancelled St. Paddy's Day, Druid's Revenge Day. So I went to the shop and I got a couple of bottles of Hobgoblin. Appropriate. So, as I didn't ask any questions, or pose the questions in advance for you, I will answer the three most basic common questions I'm asked about these videos, especially good for newcomers. I've got a lot of new people following me in recent times, and so this is for you. Now, so the first question is, let me take a swig. Oh, that's gorgeous. When you haven't drunk in a while, it's like, oh, it's lovely. The first question is people are often surprised and shocked when they hear me say Ave Lucifer. They ask, do you worship the devil, the most high demon in the Bible and all this stuff? Well, no. Let me explain to you. You got it all wrong. There's two kinds of Lucifer. Well, there's really three. The first kind of Lucifer is the one mentioned in the King James Bible, the Talmud of the North. See, if you're a Protestant and you follow the King James Bible, you are a Talmudic Jew. Now, you may hate Jews, you may be called maybe anti-Semitic, you may think you're a proud Christian, a crusader, Forza Europa, but you are a Northern Talmudist. That's all, Talmudist. That's all you are. That's all you are. The King James Bible was created by the Lutherans to take the paganism out of Christianity, which is the only reason that Christianity ever took off in Europe, and to restore it back to its Talmudic origins in native languages, German, English, Swedish, so on. Now, the King James Bible mistakenly makes during a poor translation. Now, King James didn't write the Bible; it was a commission now, and a Hebrew term was mistaken as Lucifer, and biblical scholars, both in the West and in Israel to this day, accept, and have accepted for a long time, that the Lucifer mentioned in the King James Bible is a mistranslation of a Hebrew term. So Lucifer does not appear anywhere in any biblical texts. It does not appear. So the first one, the biblical Lucifer, number one, doesn't exist. It was a mistaken translation from Hebrew into English. The second one is the esoteric Lucifer. Now, this is based again on this concept of the fallen angel. It derives itself from the idea, a kind of a modern Gnosticism dovetailed into theosophy. The Theosophists looked to Lucifer, and so did the Freemasons, as a being the fallen angel who had fallen from heaven. But interestingly, rather than saying, like Christians saying that he should have been thrown out of heaven, the Theosophist Luciferians asked the question, well, why was he thrown out of heaven? So it's a step in the right direction esoterically, no doubt about that. Now, the esoteric Luciferians that are behind things like Lucifer magazine and the Theosophists and these kinds of groups, the Lucis Trust, these Luciferian, esoteric Luciferians believe that, and it's also very deeply held within Scottish Rite and Grand Lodge of Ireland Freemasonry and Grand Orient Lodge French Freemasonry. And this is why he were held in such a high regard by the likes of George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, is that Lucifer reveals all the darkness, all the hypocrisies, because he's pure light. And this purity of light of Lucifer illuminates all that needs to be illuminated. It shines on things. It exposes hypocrisy. So basically, you incorporate the mythology, the legend of the Luciferian angel into your own self. And from that point on, rather than hiding things that shouldn't be hidden in darkness, bringing them into the light. And that's where the term enlightenment was very heavily incorporated into this Luciferian esotericism of the Theosophist. But it goes one step further again, in that it developed into a spiritual path all by itself. The belief was that Lucifer was the real god of this planet. That Lucifer, rather than Gaia, was the god of this planet. Now, I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm saying this is what the Luciferian esotericists believe. Now, this has developed into a whole religion all by itself of Luciferianism, and you see and it's been incorporated into magical rituals and so on. You see the seal of Lucifer. There's nothing wrong with this. I'm not putting it down. I'm saying it's quite valid, actually. That it's not what I'm into, but it's quite valid. So you have the Luciferians who invoke the Lucifer via his seal, and this belief that Lucifer is sort of like a esoteric version of Satanism, in the sense that, like, it takes Satanism one step beyond into an actual real religion, and the whole thing is about enlightenment. And that's the belief that Lucifer is the god of this planet, and he is very powerful, and he's very beautiful, and he is very useful in terms of you seeking answers both within yourself philosophically and within reality as a whole. Quite a benevolent spiritual path, actually. The only reasons that the Luciferians, these esoteric Luciferians, get such a hard time is because of Christian identity types that grew up in America in the 1970s in the wake of the Vietnam War, and then filtered its way through the likes of William Cooper. And that's also what is the basis of the alternative truth movement. Is basically it's biblical Christian truthers, and people like Alex Jones are spawned out of that. This 1970s, early 1970s Christian identity movement, which was a kind of a belief that the Gog Magog and the end of the world was coming, and Armageddon was around the corner, and it led to things like, well, Barry Drumore, the comedy character I've invented, that kind of thing. And they believe so they've gone to war against the Luciferianism, the esoteric Luciferians, and this is why they're anti-Freemasonry and things like that. Now, the third and final Lucifer is the path which I subscribe to, is pagan Luciferianism, the true Luciferianism. I know that sounds like the People's Puppet in front of Judea, but it's true. Lucifer is a pagan god, a classical Greco-Roman pagan god, and he has existed before even Christianity was invented. when it was before even Second Temple Rabbinical Judaism was even invented, which became Talmudic Christianity, which Protestants worship today, where Catholics basically worship a kind of a Second Temple Rabbinical Judaism with a whole lot of paganism attached to it. Now, the pagan Lucifer is represented by the planet Venus, and it's in the sky. And this is why there's often a confusion about the son of the morning star, because when when the first sort of like esoteric Christians were trying to decipher, and this would have been like 100, 200 years ago, trying to decipher Lucifer, the mistaken Lucifer in the Bible, they kept cross-referencing him to the pagan Lucifer, known to the Greeks as a phosphor, and that's why the whole thing of the sun at the morning and evening star Lucifer, yes, it is, but it's a pagan god Lucifer, who is the son of Aurora, the goddess of the dawn, the goddess of the emerging light. She gives birth to Lucifer and Diana. Diana's the goddess of the hunt. And so that's and phosphor. And again, he represents the blinding truth. In esoteric Luciferianism, you have a great way that's shown is in the tarot card of the tower. You see the lightning bolts destroying the top of the tower. That's like the emperor's new clothes. It's like, boom, you've been caught out. Boom, oh shit, you were buried below. The surface has come to get you. Boom, what you thought you'd get away with got you up the ass. Boom. It's also convoluted with the hammer of Thor, the lightning bolt of Indra in the Indo-European tradition, Lu in the Irish Celtic tradition, Loki as well, lightning in the Scandinavian Nordic pagan tradition. So Lucifer, that's when I say Ave Lucifer, and that's why I put the Latin in there. I'm specifically denoting the pagan Lucifer, as I'm an Indo-European pagan myself. I wish I could call myself a Celtic pagan, but unfortunately, the religion of the spiritual tradition of my people has been written down by monks, mostly in the Middle Ages, and it's hard to know what's true or what's not. The best way to do it is working through Indo-European archetypes in order to get to the root, and you can say, okay, well, this could relate to that, so therefore there's some truth in it. Unfortunately, like Nordic paganism, it's a difficult path to go down because Christians have editorialized it about 1,000 years ago. So we're stuck with that, whereby with classical paganism, we do have, whether it's Hellenic or classical Roman paganism, we do have, and also Prussian and Eastern European pagan is fairly untainted as well. We do have a canon, a system that we know has an authentic lineage that goes right back to ancient pagan times. Now, I'll talk about the horn god bits in a bit, okay? Well, I'll talk about that now, okay? The horn god part, when I go Ave Lucifer and long live the horn gods. First of all, when I do that, that is an ancient Southern European symbol to ward off the evil eye. That's what that's all about. So this is why celebrities do this. And you're all that satanic pedophile and all this kind of, you see all the pictures of celebrities doing that, or celebrities doing this, or celebrities doing that. What they're doing is they're warding off the evil eye of people who are jealous of them. And that's what that's all about. It's nothing to do with satanic worship or anything like that. Neither has that. This has nothing to do with Satanism. This is to ward off evil. You would find the most devout Christians in Sicily and Southern Europe and Greece doing that. A pacturopathic magic. The eye. Do I have my pen? See? To ward off the evil eye. When you step out into the public eye, you are automatically attract the hatred of the mentally ill, of the jealous, of the profane, of the savages. And what you do is you have to protect yourself with the deflecting the evil eye. When I reference the horn gods, what I'm referencing is my own native, although I do have Iberian DNA in me, so it's quite possible there could be a Roman thing in there, a Roman classical thing brought into Iberia at the time of the Lusitanians, for all I know. But anyway, the I just use them as, when I use these as, these are languages that I don't believe, these gods don't actually exist as living beings. They're power forces. We encapsulate them in zoomorphic or anamorphic identities in order to allow us to bring about their power force within us. Like Selene is the goddess of the moon. She represents the power of the moon. Neptune, or MacManaman MacLear, is the power of the sea, the power of the ocean. To invoke it, the Calacbera is the Gaelic weather hag of the Atlantic coast. So they're not actually. We're not Christians. We don't actually believe there's an actual God as a being, as a man. We understand that they're power forces that are encapsulated in archetypes. And that's what that's all about. Now, regarding the horn gods, the horn god is the la prima zoomorphized version of the European nature spirit. Pan in the Greco-Roman world, Kurunos in the Celtic Gaelic world, and so on. And that's a very powerful archetype. It's carried on well into pagan, into Christian times in England with the likes of Herne the Hunter. This is beautiful stuff now. Now the stag, the horns, when our ancient ancestors went into the forest and they beheld a mighty stag. And remember, did you ever see the Irish elk, what it looked like? The thing was gigantic, with its antlers spread out 10 feet from across. You would just sit there in awe of this magnificent creature in the wilds, able to look and be like that. And by foraging off the moss and things like that, and you were left, and if you killed them and ate their meat, it was so nutritious. They would rook. The males would fight like this. That represented kind of masculine testosterone things. They would they'd have all the fawns, and they would it would just be amazing, like to behold this magical creature. And from our earliest ancestral times, the shaman would try to incorporate the majestic power of the horned archetype into himself. So that's where if he found a pair of antlers in the woods, or a pair of even best elk ones, he would put them on a headdress on his head to bring that power force into him. And that's where the horn god comes from. It is the most profound aspect of our people's ancient spiritual identity. This is why it appears everywhere, from the Gundastap cauldron to I think it's called the West Cross at Clonmacnoise, which seems to be a very ancient, what they call a cross, the top's knocked off, megalith that has Kurunos and Celtic interlaced things within him. There's also relationships between that and the gripping beast of the Nordic pantheon. So it's a very powerful thing. So Ave Lucifer, the blinding of light, the enlightenment, the power force. Long live the horn gods. The acknowledgement of us as people under the jurisdiction of the natural world. We're not separate from the natural world the way Abrahamics see themselves as being, because as a result of having been cast out of paradise, we are part of the natural world. The stag, me, is the same. The migrating birds, me, is the same. The auguries of the cloud movements, me, is the same. And this is that's what that represents. The absolute identity of the natural forces contained within me as a person. So, and that's what that's all about. With this, to deflect the evil eye at the same time. And that's basically why I do that. So I'm not some devil worshipper who sacrifices babies and adores Satan, who doesn't exist anyway, or I'm not anything like that. I'm merely acknowledging my ancient European ancestral paganism, which I carry through to me to these days, coupled with the fact that my search for truth. And I want to, when I say truth, I don't mean I'm going like a detective. I want to find out what is, my whole life's quest has been to, what is the mysteries of this world that will make my life more interesting and more fulfilling. That's it. I'm not interested in exposing anything. I'm not that kind of a maggot. I'm not interested in, tearing down and decoding. I want to find what's good for me. What's good for me and what works for me. And that is enlightenment. And that's what I mean when I say Ave or Hail or Blessed Lucifer. That's what that's all about. Guide me on the path to enlightenment in the shadow of my pagan ancestors. That's all that means. Now, this brings us to the third thing that people ask me. Why do I hate Christians? Well, first of all, I don't hate any Christian person. Well, I don't hate anybody really, but I don't hate Christians. I know many people, wonderful human beings who are Christians, and I have friends who are Christians, and I don't care if you worship a horsefly named Eric. That is your own business, okay? Now, I don't hate Muslims. Just because I have a problem with the religion. Now, I don't have a problem with like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in a Middle Eastern context. I have a problem with those religions being told they're our religions. And when I see Christians, particularly Presbyterians, all upset that Islam's going to take over the West, you have already been conquered, my friend, by Abrahamic thought. You are not true or to your own tribal spiritual path. You just are not. Starting to get a buzz now. That's like when you don't drink for a long time as well. When you have a beer or something, not only does it taste lovely, but it's also the buzz does happen quicker. Now, the Christians, okay? That's the problem Now, I don't care what your religion is once you don't try to push it on me. The issue I have with Christianity and Judaism is evangelism. Oh, sorry, not Judaism. Islam is evangelism. This is why I don't have a problem with Judaism. Judaism does not evangelize. And Judaism has probably also helped an ancient form of Eurasian magical system and kept it alive in the Kabbalah. So there's still a powerful mystical element within Judaism. Secondly, Orthodox Jews are very aware that their God is as dangerous as anything, as well as loving. And they have a lot of their rituals and rite is to protect all humans, both Jews and Gentiles, from the wrath of Yahweh. And that's what these the Orthodox Jewish sects like Lubavitch and these types, that's what they do. That's what they believe they're doing. They're trying to protect humanity from a vengeful God, the God of the Old Testament. Now, Christians are incredibly ignorant and uneducated people. They'll say things, but the Bible says this about that, and it doesn't. They just say it. Oh, that's not what the Bible says. Oh, yes, it is. The Bible, they don't know anything. And when you read the Bible, it makes no sense. The sheaves of the field are divided by the numbers of the lambs of Israel. You know what is that? It means nothing. It's gobbledygook. The good stuff is, now they'll be talking about, well, Jesus spread a message of love. Well, that's fair enough, but so does Shiva, and even Kali does in lots of Indo-European. That's just the default state for humans. See, this all comes to the thing like, if you don't have the religion, if you don't have the Bible, you don't have morality. Well, motherfucker, you never had morality. If you need a Bible to give you morality, you never fucking had it. Okay. Now, and you that when I say morality, I mean decency. Decency is an 8. Normal human beings are born with decency, and if you need the Bible to give you decency, you're a fucking psycho. That's the end of that. Don't come near me. I don't want you anywhere near me. Now, that's another reason why I don't like Christianity as a. Now, I'm talking about not Christian people. I'm talking about this religion. It creates this notion that suffer now, pay later. And the same with Islam, the whole thing that you had, the 72 virgins in heaven. Where pagans believe that this planet is beautiful, have a wonderful time, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, just sacrifice for your spiritual your spiritual path by sacrifice. That means you give something to others. You sacrifice things in order to money or work or labor in order to get blessings from the God. That doesn't mean the gods are personally blessing you. It means like you know, a good deed will be remembered by others. Your kindness will be remembered by others. Things you've done to people, you've made them laugh, they will remember you for that. And that's a kind of a sacrifice thing. And this is why there's so much misery in places like Scandinavia. Scandinavia is an example of, forget all these stupid surveys you see about Scandinavians being the happiest people on earth. There isn't even a word for happy in much of Scandinavia. Basically, their words translate, I am not depressed today. That's what a Scandinavian means by happy. I'm not depressed today. Those societies are ravaged by uses of psych meds, Xanax, the rest, Prozac, you fucking name it. They're all on them. Scandinavians are terrified to speak to a stranger. And this is all Lutheranism. The Lutheranism has done this to them. They've forgotten the process of sacrifice and put all their bags in prayer. Prayer is a form of spiritual welfare. You're giving nothing and asking for everything. And that comes from the kind of Lutheran ideas. You must pray. And if it goes wrong, you pray some more. And if it goes wrong, you pray some more. And the Catholics have this thing that you suffer on this earth. And then when you die, you'll be rewarded in paradise. A great way to control people. Where the pagans were like, have fun. Today, March 17th, was the Roman festival of Liberalia, which was a day off for apprentice boys in ancient Rome. And what they did was they screwed prostitutes, picked up girls, drank beer, and ate corned beef and cabbage. And that's where it came into the Western thought that they just transmigrated it into St. Patrick's Day. And when potatoes came from America, that was incorporated. But that makes sense as well. The cabbage helps with the hangover and things like that. The Christians don't know their own religion. You know, for instance, if you were born a Christian, you can leave any time. Like me attacking your faith. So what? You can leave. It's not like a skin color. It's not like I'm attacking the shape of your nose. It's something you can opt out of any time. And you say, "Well, I'm a Christian. I'm offended." But you didn't choose to be a Christian in 99.9% of the cases. You only are one because your parents are one. Same with Muslims, same with other Abrahamics. You didn't where most pagans alive today, because the Christians killed all our ancestors, or wiped them, or forced converted them, made a choice to stop being Christians. They made a choice. And pagans offer a better path out of organized religion for people who are sick of it than atheism does, because this is why there's high suicide rates and so on among atheists, because atheism is just another form of, like, you know, Lutheranism. It's just, you'll find that so many of the hardcore atheists tend to be nearly always Protestants and from Lutheran backgrounds, and they're just exchanging one set of dogmatic rules with another. That's all they're doing. So, and I do not absolutely have a problem with people who go to Mass, celebrate their Christian rites. I have more respect for a devout Catholic or a devout Protestant who goes to church and has a genuine connection to their faith, rather than someone who, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian. How dare you say that to me? When was the last time you went to church? I love Jesus. You know, those types. I've no time for them. They're just, spiritual NPCs. That's all they are. So that's it. I hope that answers the questions for you, especially any new ones that came along. And I don't care what your religion is. I make sure to, like, there's loads of asshole pagans. This is why I want nothing to do with so many pagans. And this is why anyone, like all these cosplay druids who have a staff and a cape and all this stuff, or these Wiccan witchy poo types who think they're Stevie Nicks, The real druids, if there's any left today, are dressed in normal clothes. The real witches and warlocks are dressed in normal clothes. The real magical practitioners are dressed in normal clothes. They don't bring attention to themselves because by looking like Stevie Nicks in a pointed hat, because they know very well what happened to their ancestors. Our ancestors didn't. The witches who were picked up and persecuted in the past didn't dress like Stevie Nicks. They were women, they played a very low profile and they hid and stayed low because they knew that there were legal prosecutions that could lead as far as death, at least imprisonment, if they were tried at witchcraft. That's why if you had went back to the height of when witchcraft and folk magic was practiced in the time of the cunning folk would have been the most normal looking, socially integrated, the last one on earth you would expect to be a witch, because they were fully aware of what the Christian prohibitions and the biblical mind is capable of against witchcraft, because it's such a forbidden thing in biblical and Abrahamic thought, because it doesn't want you to have any magic, because it doesn't want you to have any freedom, and that's what that's really all about, and stewardship of your own thing. So that's ales and answers to Hobgoblin. Not a particularly rare beer, but quite delicious. And